Hello, everyone. I'm Kelly Covert, and I am at home today with Sara Davis Buechner, our guest artist this week for our Masterworks concert. Sara, how are you today?
Just fine. How are you doing, Kelly?
Very good. And I'm so excited to sit down with you and just like get to know you a little bit. So I think one of the things that everyone is super curious about these days, of course, is what have you been doing during COVID? How have you been surviving, thriving, all of those things? Because, of course, you're used to having probably a very full travel schedule and all of those things. So what has this time looked for you?
I've actually been terribly busy, mostly as a teacher, because concertizing is sort of like 50-60% of my life. And then the rest of it is taken up with teaching. I'm a professor at Temple University. So we've had a lot of busy work there, getting ready for the fall semester, and of course, even recruiting students. And over the summer, I was listening to, auditioning, and teaching students from all over the globe. I mean, quite a bit. And some of the festivals that I was going to go to in the summer, like Chautauqua and the Orford Music Center in Montreal, just went online. So I was doing the same thing I would have done had I gone physically to those places. So there's a semblance of normality to that, but of course it's totally different on Zoom, and it's a whole new curious reality. And I think we all have kind of mixed feelings about it, but I'm glad that we can connect, at least visually and communication wise with that. So I felt grateful to be busy with those kind of activities. I've also been practicing. I'm learning a huge new set of preludes by a Hungarian composer named Peter Wolf. And I had planned a trip to Europe to go see him and see some other people and so forth. So instead, I'm seeing him on Zoom every few weeks. I play a few of these things for him. So there too, Zoom is very, very helpful. But I think, like everybody, I'm itching to go outside and do it for real. I really miss the travel. It's a very big part of my life, and there's nothing more I love than the ability to go to new places and see new things, and especially eat lots of food that I haven't eaten yet.
Well, yeah, that's what it's all about, right? Well, so you're not traveling too far from Philadelphia to Syracuse for this concert, but have you ever been to Syracuse before?
I have been up to that area of the country, certainly many times. I've been to Utica. I know I've been to Rochester several times, and of course, very often to Albany. And I lived in New York for a long, long time, around 27 years of my life. And I know that area of the country mostly from the glorious train ride right up the Hudson. And boy, this is the perfect season to do it. So I have to fly up, but I'll take the train back down. So I'm going to enjoy that very, very much. It's beautiful. Just a great part of the country.
Well, and we'll have to hook you up with all of the most exciting places to eat here in Syracuse, because we have some very famous restaurants, and we'll make sure that you go to the right places. So you'll have good memories of Syracuse.
It's not recommended for anyone. Yes, that's right.
Right. Exactly. So I'm curious to know, especially during this time where you're not traveling so much, you're not getting the inspiration of new places or new experiences. Where are you finding your inspiration?
That's a very, very good question. Surprisingly, I am getting new inspirations from things that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise. I certainly have done more hiking around the city of Philadelphia than I ever would have previously. And of course, a city like Philly, like many East Coast cities, is so full of history and really amazing architecture. And I've been kind of grateful for the chance to do a little bit of roaming and hiking around. And we also we took a day trip to Wilmington, Delaware. Now, this is the kind of location that you usually think, where are you going to vacation this summer? Well, we're choosing between Paris and London and Wilmington, Delaware. But Wilmington has a spectacular art museum, a very, very beautiful public park, and a train station named for Vice President Joseph Biden. So there's a lot of things that I discovered on that trip to Wilmington. So to say, I mean, if you look around, you find little art museums and beautiful parks and all kinds of interesting people all over the place. So we're lucky. We live in a varied and diverse country, which even, in the little enclaves that we're all probably in, there's there's plenty to see and do. I guess my grandmother, who was full of Methodist homilies, used to say, "Honey, if you've been served some lemons, just make some lemonade," you know.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. Well, we were talking before we got on about the gifts that COVID has brought us with being able to do things like this with Zoom and having more opportunities to connect with people in a way that maybe we weren't doing before. And I know that for us at Symphoria, that's something that we have really loved, is being able to do things like this. And it's something that we will continue doing going forward.
A lot of those kind of things will continue past the pandemic, and it's a good development. I mean, when I think about this city, let's say in the months before all this happened, and just every morning was the same. Thousands of commuters, coffee, Danish, work. That's all kind of gone for a while, and I certainly don't mean to shortchange the difficulties that many people have had. And at the outset of the pandemic, I knew 4 people who passed away in New York City alone. People have had tremendous hardships, and I am far luckier than many musicians I know because of Temple University. If I was a freelance musician, I think I would be speaking in a much more dire tone. And these folks really, really need our help now as best we can. So.
100%. So I'm curious, with all of your responsibilities teaching at Temple, how do you balance the teaching and the practicing? What does that look like for you?
Well, you sort of have to set some limits. On the one hand, I think in the past I was always quite zealous about maintaining my morning practice time and not letting the teaching intrude into the practicing and concert preparation and vice versa. As soon as the pandemic hit, though, I sort of thought to myself, I'm going to flip these percentages a little bit. I would say I was really spending about 75 to 80% of my musical energy on the students, and especially through the summer. I didn't get compensated for this, but I gave all of them lessons all throughout the summer because so many of them were stuck here. These are international students. They can't go home. They're seeing their parents and other loved ones on a Zoom screen, as we're doing right now, in a strange city, usually in one-room apartments with an electronic keyboard to practice on. And if I didn't help to provide some structure, inspiration to their life, then it's even more disconcerting. So I did a lot of extra teaching all throughout the summer. And now we're fortunate that we went to kind of hybrid teaching in the fall. I'm giving in-person lessons to the students. We have a plastic shield and we have masks and, all the rest of it. But I would say my responsibility, my sense of obligation as a keeper of the flame really grew a lot during that pandemic time. And of course, it's not over. I'm quite bullish we'll have a vaccine in a few months, but until that happy time, it's you assume the things that drop upon your shoulders as best you can.
Well, and I'm sure that they're so glad to have a teacher like you who is committed to them, to be there, to really be there. And I know back from my School of Music days and also from when I was teaching in a School of Music that student-teacher relationship with your private lesson instructor it's more than just, going to class, where there's 30 people in the class. It's really personal, and you get really close to your teacher and your students, vice versa. So I'm so glad that they have you to be with them.
I hope most of them would agree with what you just said. Who knows? Someone's oh, there's a Dr. Buechner calling again.
Why won't she just leave me alone? No, I'm sure that they don't think that.
Speak to the transcendental quality of music itself. It's not just something we study or do. That's when I get interviewed, very often people say, when did you choose to study music? You don't choose to study music. Music chooses you. And I like to think it's chosen all of those people. And so the bond you have of teaching the music to the young people is, it feels, basically, it's kind of a sacred trust in a way. It's like, here's this transcendental art form. This is what I know about it. Here it is. Don't drop this, And of course you're thinking, in the next generation and the generation after that, they'll be passing it down too. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a kind of artisan-like handicraft quality. I think of that when I've been in Japan and you see some sushi master or someone who's. I remember there was this 90-year-old woman sewing pens out of silk. Can you believe this? And she had an apprentice and she was teaching. It was like, it's kind of mind blowing. It's been going on for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're 3048, someone saying, I studied with this person who studied with someone who studied with someone who studied with Sara Buechner. You never know.
Well, so speaking of your role as supportive teacher, another big role that you play in your life is as an LGBTQ activist. Mm-hmm. And we were so fortunate that you were able to, with us in collaboration with the Q Center, spend some time in a Q&A with a lovely person from the Q Center, and really answering questions and just talking about what it's like to be you in this world. So, how do you see your role as an activist?
Yeah, I think there are people who are much better and more active as activists. If I can't think of a better verb at 9 o'clock in the morning, in terms of really championing equal rights, civil rights, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm aware that I'm a role model, and that's also, it's not really by choice. It's just by happenstance that in the late 90s I transitioned, and at that time it was rare enough that it was a little spectacular and also quite difficult for me as a person, as a musician. Caused me a lot of career angst and so forth. And I'm so happy that times have changed quite dramatically. But I've never forgotten the experience of being a young trans person and not having role models, not having people to answer whatever questions. Really living a certain part of my life in real terror and fear. Because it was just a hostile climate. Our country has changed a lot for the better. We still have a long, long road to go. I think most people know this. And, so the young people out there who are looking for answers, not so much in the bigger cities, but in smaller places, in small towns, I'm really happy and honored, to play this role for some young people. Usually when I go to give concerts, I am asked by colleges or high schools or LGBTQ support groups to give a talk or something like that. And it's very much that just your presence, the fact, here I am, I'm 61 years old, I'm a trans woman, and I'm standing here doing what I always wanted to do, and you can too. Even if you have to persevere at it or you have to break down a few walls, it can be done. You don't have to give up. You're really fighting against the despair that can come from feeling alone, from being alienated, from knowing you're different and not knowing what to do with that. So that's part of the price. Somebody once told me that's part of the price of the ticket, honey.
Well, I'm glad that you paid that price and that you continue to pay it for all of us. Oh. And we are so honored to welcome you to our stage, to have you play Mozart with us. And I'm so looking forward to your performance. We can't wait. So everyone, have a wonderful week. Sara, we will see you this Friday and Saturday for the performance. And for those of you who have not gotten your tickets yet, you can go to experiencesymphoria.org and get your tickets for the streaming concert, which is Saturday night at 7:30. Talk to you soon, everyone.